Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Post-Conference Presser for Anfield Index. It is Tuesday, the 10th of February, and in a little bit over 24 hours, Liverpool will take the field at the Stadium of Light against Sunderland, where, I think if we're being honest, the hopes aren't too high for this one. We'll see what it brings. We'll see what right back starts, even though it won't really be a right back, will it? We'll see what Liverpool serve up. There is plenty to get into. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from, it's pretty miserable and dark around Edinburgh. Fingers crossed it's a little bit nicer in the world wherever you are, but it's probably not too nice when talking about Liverpool right now and all the things that are going on. We do what we do as ever on Post-Conference Presser, so we'll talk about the questions and answers that Arne Slot gave, and I actually think he just outright lied on one of the questions, so we're going to have to speak about that at length. We'll talk about the clues from the Man City game and relive some of that, even though we don't want to. We'll talk about the threats that Sunderland bring, and that record at the Stadium of Light is pretty impressive for all the wrong reasons Liverpool should be thinking. And then, of course, we'll finish with lineup, score, and scorers. But, yeah, I mean, where to even start with what Arne Slot said in this press conference? And listen, there's more dramatic things in the world, don't get me wrong. There's war, famine, pestilence and all that going on. But the backdrop to this, I mean, Liverpool are in sixth place. They are 4 points adrift of fifth. And Champions League looks a forlorn hope, a minimal hope. It's definitely not an expectation now, is it at all? It does feel like a long shot. Just because of recent form tells you that. United and Chelsea have won 4 on the spin. We've won 6 since late September. So let's just be factual about those things. As well, when you look at the other fixtures, because you are looking at teams around the 5th spot now and what they're doing. I mean, tonight, you expect, even tomorrow doesn't look great for us, but tonight you expect Chelsea to beat Leeds. I think if you're honest, I'd probably expect United to beat West Ham as well. So the gap is likely to be even bigger before 8:15 tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, there's not many redeeming features when you look at anything around the Premier League, isn't it? So what did Arne Slot say in this presser? Again, one thing I've got to be honest, I think he outright lied, which I'll get to that. But we got injury updates as well. Again, nothing that was positive. Joe hasn't trained with us yet. I'm expecting him today for the first time. Indeed, if Joe is not ready to start, then we are missing 4 players who have played right back. Curtis and Watt have played in this position, so had 6 different right fullbacks. So it's Joe Gomez, isn't it? And I adore Gomez, don't get me wrong, but the fact he's not trained all week, he's not going to start in this one, is he? He's got bench duty probably written all over it. Yeah. And JD there, don't state facts like those, or he'll be a toxic fan that doesn't support the club. Well, I'll be factual, I'll be objective, JD, and then people can say what they like. And I do enjoy the odd comment on social media, especially that guy that keeps referring to me as the big fat head and things like that. So it is an interesting one. Now, a couple of clips worth playing here, and there's definitely a few we're going to focus on. But Arne Slot saying it has been when asked about, I should say, has it been the toughest season? Let's just have a listen to what he said on this one. And I have cranked up the volume for you. It's an exception for me this season. Is it really, though? Because when you look at this result, this run of form, I think it's been going on for a while. So just in case you missed what he said, it didn't come through, because probably you've said about sound. They said, it's been my toughest by a mile. I don't think I've ever lost 2 games in a row. The players aren't used to dropping so many points, and neither am I. But losing's become habitual. I think, is it 6 wins since late September? People will harp on. They look at the 20 games in a row, matching or a similar record, I should say, to Roy Hodgson at the same time as well. Yeah. And there is mitigation, of course, with everything that happened in the summer around the Jota tragedy, the churn. But at the same time, it's just not good enough, is it, really? Yeah. It's all right. I agree with him. Fair to say, the toughest season for me as a manager by a mile. Don't think I'd ever previously lost 2 games in a row. It's an exception for me and the players. Is it, though? Because footballers are habitual creatures. And this, unfortunately, seems baked into their psyche a little bit at the moment. But yeah, another clip, and gosh, he never even plays. And I saw him in a video with Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz was doing physical training the other day, and they were using a couple of coaches with crash pads. And Calvin Ramsey was kind of there as an extra defender, almost like an extra body. So I felt a bit sorry for him in this video. And I felt more sorry for him when Arne Slot was asked about would he be introduced or used at all against Sunderland. And I've put sound on, I've cranked up the volume. So let's have a listen to this one.
What is in a round hole? What does that mean?
Basically, he's a right back who can play a right back pretty much.
Sorry?
He's a right back who he's a right back rather than Curtis or Enzo, who it feels as you would be makeshift options.
Yeah. Now, I think in general, if you don't win a game, the players who are not playing become the best players of the squad. And that is, I think, everywhere in the world the same. So if the players who are starting not winning, then the manager could have always better chosen another one. That and I think this is an example of that as well. I just want to protect all my players, and I've chosen other players till now, and that's also what I'm going to do tomorrow.
I want to protect all my players. It's a noble sentiment, but it doesn't really stack up, does it? Because there was the press conference a couple of weeks ago where he kind of made it quite clear that Calvin Ramsey was about 6th or 7th in the pecking order for press conferences, for right back even, sorry. But how is it protecting that to say, I'll pick other players when we're absolutely decimated? And he'd even just said before, Curtis Jones and Waterendo were the 6th or 7th options. I'm not really sure this is protecting Calvin Ramsey whatsoever. If you're probably protecting Calvin Ramsey, you'd have let him go out on loan. Because if he's not even your 6th choice right back, what is the point of him being at the football club? Yeah. And yeah, it's not still the biggest thing that I'm sort of pointing the finger at for Arne Slot in this one. I think it was honest in one that I saw got a lot of controversy. Just in case you missed it, he was asked about Champions League qualification. Said, if we don't get it, is it an unacceptable season? He said, if we don't have Champions League qualification, then it's definitely not been an acceptable season. When I arrived here, we could only sign Chiesa, and that was after Europa League season. I'm completely aware of that. So I'm going to split this into 2 parts. Because the first part, I actually don't mind. If we don't have Champions League qualification, it's definitely not an acceptable season. I want him to say that. Anything else would be loser talk in my eyes. So it's right that he said that. It's the knock-on implication of the second part here. When I arrived, we could only sign Chiesa, and that was after Europa League season. I'm completely aware of that. Now, there's a clear implication there for Arne Slot, or from Arne Slot, that I got into a club. We had Europa League, obviously, in Jurgen Klopp's last season. Essentially, we could only sign Federico Chiesa, i.e., there wasn't really much money in the pot because of the nature of that. That's a clear implication that he stated. And you knew Arne Slot is a shrewd communicator. He would want that to come across. And JD's put in the chat panel there, almost like a hold on. Didn't we try to sign Zubamendi in that window? Arne Slot is not telling the truth here for a number of reasons. When I arrived, we could only sign Chiesa, and that was after a Europa League season. I'm completely aware of that. Okay. Number of reasons I've got take a bit of umbrage with that. And let's just be factual in what we're saying here. Let's listen to Richard Hughes last week, the round table. You'll all know it by now, right at the end.
Ultimately, we're reaping the benefits of. I think for Arne and I, it's a lot more sort of short term, and it's rare that you get Arne sort of looking too far ahead. And my role is somewhere in between there, right? And I think that it was obvious when we first came in that the best thing to do was evaluate what was a very talented squad, but then, how are they going to transition into a sort of a new regime? Clearly very well was the answer last year, but then within a squad game, there are so many players whose game time perhaps is not what they want it to be. So then they have to look at other opportunities for them. So we knew that the first summer together, as soon as we'd come in, wasn't going to be a particularly active one. And alongside sort of ownership with their long-term vision, they like to do things with all the metrics and the data in our favour. And the best way to do that is to prepare 1 year ahead, so one summer window to the next. So we deliberately did not a lot in our first season when we come in, but knew that we could identify throughout the course of last year players that would come in and help the squad. The age.
Okay, that's a lot of Richard Hughes to absorb in a short space of time. So I'll just sort of replay what he said. I'll be factual in the statement that he made as well. It was obvious the first thing to do when we came here was to evaluate a very talented squad and how they were going to transition into a new regime. We knew the first time together wasn't going to be a particularly active one. Alongside the ownership with the long-term vision, they like to do things with all the metrics and data in their favour. And the best way is to prepare 1 year ahead, one summer window to the next. So we deliberately didn't do a lot in our first season coming in, but knew we could identify through the course of last year players who could come in to help the squad. So this is referring back, not to the summer just gone, but the previous one before. Now that doesn't tally up at all with what Arne Slot just said about Champions League, because just in case you missed it, his words, I feel like Perry makes it here a little bit. If we don't have Champions League qualification, then it's definitely not an acceptable season. When I arrived here, we could only sign Chiesa, and that was after a Europa League season. I'm completely aware of that. So Arne Slot, with the implication that we couldn't do much because we didn't have the cash almost, or either budget, whatever you want to call it, because we've had Europa League. Richard Hughes clearly saying, clearly in the round table, we didn't want to do much because we wanted to evaluate and see. And let's be honest, that's how they sold part of the title win, wasn't it? That it worked well, the perfect storm of not making many changes, keeping the same players together. But what Richard Hughes and Arne Slot are saying do not tally together. Let's be crystal clear on that. At the same time, Arne Slot saying, we could only really do Chiesa. Richard Hughes saying, well, we made that decision not to do much. That was a deliberate decision. Let's not reinvent history for either of them. I know he's an Arsenal player now, but August the 9th, 2024, Liverpool continuing to work on signing Martin Zubimendi. We know how that went. That's David Ornstein. Also in the same summer, Lille's Lenny Yoro actively pursued by United and Liverpool. A couple of months earlier, in fact, June 2024, David Ornstein and others there as well. So what Arne Slot is saying doesn't ring true. Just being factually objective that, the last time, because when he came in, we only did Chiesa because we weren't in the Champions League. Well, we tried for Yoro, we tried for Zubimendi, and they would have cost a pretty penny, as you well know. We know about the release clause. So that's not true. Also, it ultimately contradicts a lot of what Richard Hughes was saying there on the round table. Again, comments like that, and you could always say you read too much into a press conference. I get that element sometimes, everything gets pounced on, but don't say things that are going to get you into trouble, can be easily disproved as not true, and also are contradictory to what your boss says at the same time. It just doesn't look smart again. And that's not, we don't really need to go too much into another not battering Calvin Ramsey, but saying what you said about Calvin Ramsey and other things. So, yeah, just genuinely was a bit, not staggered, not taken aback, just you think, Arne Slot, what are you doing here a bit in terms of what you say? And it's just not clever at all. He was also asked about the recent form. Of course he was. And he said, every game we feel we are going to win it, and too often it doesn't happen. That's more difficult than if you play a whole game where you feel you just aren't good enough. The players feel they can compete with any team in the world, but reality is that we don't perform to the Liverpool standards. There is truth in that. They haven't performed to Liverpool standards this season. But every game we feel we're going to win it, I don't think that matches the fans or the reality whatsoever. Liverpool have also had two settings this season. We've either had, as Sam Maguire phrased it, coin flip FC, where the focus is about not getting beat and then just seeing if a bit of individual magic or genius can do something for you. That's been one setting. Or the attacking too open style that we've seen at the same time as well. A little bit like the recent game against Man City, Bournemouth, where we'll just think, let's try and go attacking, see if we can do it. And actually we'll probably die of energy late on, or lack of energy. So I'm not really sure I'm buying that too much either. In terms of what he said about other teams, because we mentioned others in the league, I mean, Liverpool can fall further down the table, can't they? Arne Slot said there are more teams that are having a very good season. Arsenal won, Villa impressive, Brentford impressive, but Sunderland also impressive. It's definitely an accomplishment if you come up to the Premier League and do as well as they have. I mean, Sunderland are, to be fair to him, a shout for, there used to be like a player's player or most improved player type of thing. That, I think they've got a shout in a different way for team of the season. I know it always usually goes to the title winners, but what Regis Lebris and Sunderland have done is pretty special, and we'll talk about them a little bit more. And in terms of future hopes as well, of course, he was asked about what's needed to get the Champions League and different bits. And Arne Slot did reply to say, close to perfection is needed. Because of points, we are behind. It's different when you're 4 points behind a team that's 18th, as they normally don't pick up as many as 4th or 5th place teams. We have to win a lot, and we haven't done that a lot this season, so it has to be better. Well, yeah, we haven't won a lot. We won, say, 6 times since late September. You could talk about unbeaten runs, but we all know how many draws or poor performances really were in that mix at the same time. Close to perfection. This team's averaging not far over 1.5 points a game. It's nowhere near, is it? And also you say it's different when you're, if it was 18th, or, well, look at the form table recently. I think Liverpool over the last 20 games are in 12th and only a few points off in that form table, the relegation zone. I mean, as much as people are talking about Champions League hopes as well, which I understand, there'll still be some who are uber positive in the fan base. I'm not going to count myself in them. At which point do you start saying you're probably looking down rather than up? Just an honest question. At which point? I mean, I don't think we're going to get Champions League. Is it better to be out of Europe completely? Hasn't that better sort of benefited other teams in the past, like Chelsea? Where are we expecting us to finish? I really don't know the answer right now as well. Yeah, just something to think about as well. But even the way Arne Slot phrased this, or not from benefited, I'm trying to read the quote and multitask badly here. He said, I don't think we feel we've only lost 2 of our last 17. A draw feels like a loss. The players know what the standards of Liverpool mean, and we aren't performing to those standards. They feel that disappointment. As well, they should. There's a standard at Liverpool, but yeah, saying every game we feel we're going to win, but then he's struggling to tally it all together in what Arne Slot's saying. And I actually think, in all honesty, when you get to these stages of a reign, when it feels like it's coming to the end, as much as someone might be trying to fight, rally against, change a narrative, it just feels the sense of inevitability of what's going to happen, doesn't it? it almost just feels now, how long is Arne Slot and Liverpool going to keep this going? I think the full expectation is, if we're honest, till the end of the season. But it might just feel like 1,000 pinpricks until then, might it? And we do what we always do. We look at the last game. You might well have tried to steer away from the highlights completely and what clues we got from City. Now, there were some positives to the game. There was a 35-minute period, of course, but if you are honest about the way you analyse this, City did deserve to win. They had more possession. They had a higher XG. Yes, I appreciate the penalty is in there, but they dominated that first 45 and we're lucky to be level at the break. Yes, we had the better 35 minutes of that second half period, but at the end, we all sort of went into containment mode and just the energy was just flat across the board, wasn't it? They were more likely to score, and maybe, I know rules are rules, VAR, whatever you want to call it, could have been 3-1, couldn't it? They had more shots as well. They were well worthy winners, City. We had a chance to put our foot on their neck at the time, and we just didn't do it. Simple as that. I'm not really calling it bad luck, particularly. You can't play well for 35 minutes of a, say, 100-minute match and say it's bad luck. So there's that. Also, other points to mention. The midfield gets badly exposed, but you just saw there's nothing really bite-wise in that midfielder, especially when you're looking with Gravenberch and McAllister. City got the tactics right, and they exposed that midfield. That would be another lesson learned for me. I'd say well done to the two Hungarian boys. They were the two that really shone, and it's a shame in a way Dominic Szoboszlai scores that free kick in that game because it'll almost be ignored or forgotten in the grand context of things. But what a hit it was. Thought Milos Kerkez continuing his good form there as well. Other things just to note, and this won't make me popular, but Mo Salah makes a great chance for Hugo Ekitike. He should score it. Florian Wirtz should do better with that shot as well, where he kind of rolls it instead of, going across, go to the near post and hit it with power. That's just factual again. The two new signings didn't really shine in this one. Yes, they weren't given sustained possession. Yes, we saw a good pass from Florian Wirtz for Hugo Ekitike, but just the forward attack, we don't need to get started on Gakpo, do we? It just didn't function across the board. So again, when you talk about these City clues, in what was, you felt if we were going to get in the Champions League or are still, however you want to phrase it, you needed to get a positive result there. And with 10 minutes to go, using Arne Slot's words, we're within 5 points of Manchester City. By the end of it, we're in 11th. Or 11 points, behind Manchester City. It could be 11th by the near future. We will see. But those are the clues I take away from the City game. In terms of Sunderland's threats, now, they are the surprise package of this season. A lot of signings, which people always wonder, how will that go? I mean, they're doing brilliantly to be in 9th place. And they are kind of like on-off. Like, look at that. Lose, win, the recent form. It sort of alternates. Unfortunately, the last one was a loss. So you'd expect a green W, and that's probably what I would predict tomorrow night as well. They don't ship too many either, Sunderland. They are a physical side. You think of Ballard at the back. How dangerous is he going to be? And others like Mukiele on set pieces. Brian Brobbery, an absolute unit. He made it difficult at Anfield for us. Do you think back to that Anfield game? I mean, we were appalling, weren't we? Sunderland probably deserved to get it. Maybe a Federico Chiesa. Do you remember that clearance off the line late on? Yeah. And that was at Anfield, people. If you're thinking why Memphis Inno said it a few times, that was at Anfield. Have a look at how Sunderland do at the Stadium of Light. They have the 4th best home record in the Premier League. In 12 games at the Stadium of Light this season, they are unbeaten. They have won 7 and drawn 5. Even worse, because we're now, our attack isn't functioning as well. There's only Arsenal who've conceded less at home. Arsenal have shipped 8 in 13. Sunderland have only conceded 9 goals in 12 home games. It is raucous at the Stadium of Light. They will want to make this a physical game. And JD saying there, Siddiqui is a monster for them at DM. He absolutely is. We talk about Ballard, Mukiele. They will want to make this what I would call a Liverpool kryptonite game. Liverpool, as we know, cannot handle when a team goes long repeatedly. Liverpool cannot handle set pieces repeatedly. I know that you could argue, and that this is, true in recent times. There has been an upturn with our set pieces a little bit, but I don't really feel confident. I think Sunderland have got all the tools. The atmosphere will be against us. We've seen how this team caves late on at the same time as well. Yeah, it just doesn't stack up well, does it, whatsoever? Which comes to the last bit, ladies and gents, where we talk about the lineup, the score, and the scorers. Perhaps the greatest debate in this is right back midfield, isn't it? Who is going to come in? Who's going to make way, as it were? Because Dominic Szoboszlai suspended, would have been first name on the team sheet. So that's another disaster for this season. But when you think of the lineup, of course, it's going to be Alisson in nets. If he could maybe sort out his kicking a little bit or not have a City performance, that would be great. But the holy goal is between the sticks. Of course, it's going to be Van Dijk and Konate, who actually, when you looked at their aerial numbers against City, weren't that great. And even for the goal, Haaland gets up and reacts earlier well before Konate, doesn't he? So you're going to need them to be on top form, which is an ask. Kirkes, of course, he's going to be, or should be, at left back. Deserved it. Deserves to keep his place. So Robbo's going to be on the bench. It then comes to who's going to be right back, with Bradley out for the season, Frimpong still injured. We, just in case you missed it at the top, did say Joe Gomez is back and expected to train, but he's not going to start, isn't he? It really comes down now to Endo or Curtis at right back. And I think he'll look the better player and he'll go with Curtis Jones at right back, who's well ahead of Endo in his pecking order. So that's what I think your back five will be. Alisson, Van Dijk and Konate in the middle, Kirkes left, Curtis Jones on the right. Now, I wouldn't do this personally, but again, I think you'll see McAllister and Gravenberch at the double pivot. Two who have played around, weren't physical enough against City, but, he would argue what options, but come on. But that's what I think. And I think, again, you will see, I would not do this, by the way, just to be clear, this would not be my lineup, but I think from what Arne Slot will do, I think you will see Florian Wirtz in the 10. I think you will see Hugo Ekitike in the middle. I think you will see Gakpo left, Salah right. And I wouldn't have Gakpo in this lineup, just to be clear. You've seen how bad his or poor his form's been recently. I just wouldn't have him there. But I do think that is the team that Arne Slot will play. I think we'll have possession in this, probably more than Sunderland, but I don't think that'll matter because I think Sunderland will look to go long, direct, and use the tools that will hurt Liverpool. They'll also look at Liverpool misfiring largely. Don't forget, we need a Dominic Szoboszlai special to get the goal against City. And I know people are going to hark back to look at the Karabag game, look at the Newcastle game, but look at our away form as well. So what's my prediction for this? Do you know what? Even my heart is saying draw. And it's not going to be enough for Champions League qualification or to keep us in that race. But if I'm being honest objectively, I do think Sunderland win this. You can see it with maybe an ugly set piece or something like that. But if I had to predict, rightly or wrongly, a Sunderland win. So there you go. A press conference where, ladies and gents, think many in the chat panel are saying the same. Sunderland, they think, will beat us. Arne Slot didn't tell the truth. Arne Slot could have been smarter again in what he said around Calvin Ramsey. He was honest to say no Champions League would be unacceptable, but that is where it's heading. There's not too much to be positive about right now. Let's see if we get a pleasant surprise tomorrow night, 8:15, the Stadium of Light. But for another post-conference presser for Anfield Index.